Welcome back to the channel, good friends. Brian from Apex Auction Car Reconditioning. Brake calipers. I went to put brake pads on here, saw another issue that led to, so we're going to do the brakes and calipers, and if needed that may lead to the brake lines themselves, but we'll see how that goes. Let's get started with the chore today. I have this side already finished. We just need to bleed the system. When I went to replace the pads here, these pins that go across and hold the pads and have the pads slide on were seized. They should be punched out from the back, pulled out, but they were seized, and I don't want them to give myself or anybody else a problem in the future, so we're going to do calipers as well as the pads with these pins. Needed new pins as well, or springs. They hold the pins in place, and they also spread the brake pads so they're not riding on the rotor. The rotor's nice and thick, so that's perfectly fine. Let's get over to the bench and see what we have waiting for us. When it comes to the pads, I did pick up the Platinum. Didn't want to go with the cheapest. Pads themselves were down to 1/8 of what these show, the brand new thick pads. We have two kits full of springs and clamps and clips and plates that lock into the pistons. So we'll get that together. You can pull the brake pads out through the back of the caliper without removing the caliper. So you can do brake pads without removing the caliper. We'll put everything together on the table here, and then we'll get it on. First, we need to break those loose. I have the bolts soaking for about 1.5 days, so we don't have an issue with that. We have our .3 waiting for us to bleed the system. All kinds of tools. 22 for the lug nuts, pull the wheel. 10, 11, 12, 14 for the bolts. We have breaker bars here in case we need them. Extension C-clamps in case we need to squeeze the pistons back in to make removal a bit easier. And some tools here to manipulate the springs and pins. Well, let's jump to it. Let's get to work. Let's get the hood back open here. Pop the reservoir for the brake juice. Turn the wheel all the way to the left so we can get access to the bolts for the calipers, just a bit easier. Seems to be as far as it goes there. That's good. That's fine. All right, we need to remove this bolt. That will get the brake line away. And there's a top bolt for the caliper here and down in here. We need to break those loose as well. And then if we need to, we can squeeze the pistons back in so we can slide this away. We may not need to do that, but you can see where these springs here hold and spread apart the brake pads so they're not riding on the rotor. And then this one back here is missing. This one would have went from here into this hole and then into, where is it? That pin right there, and would have held the pins in place. So hardware missing, stuff rusted. We're making the right move here, replacing the caliper, obviously. 14mm for the brake line. We have a catch underneath here for the brake fluid. Don't worry about the bolt. They do send another bolt, a brand new one, to put in there for the brake line. Okay, I'm going to let that drain a little bit. It's going to come out of the caliper as well. Trying not to make a mess. And now we need 17mm for the big bolts that hold the caliper on. And they're going to be tight, of course, as they should be. Get the rest by hand. Don't you love it when it's just loose enough you think you can get it by hand? But you can't get it by hand, so you got to put the ratchet back on it. I think I can get it now. Carefully get that line out of the way. There we go. Okay. Now, we'll see if it's loose enough that this will slide right off of the rotor. If not, we'll just squeeze these pistons a bit, make a little bit more room. See how it goes. And there we go. And you can see how thin the pads were getting. Now we'll assemble this and then slide it onto the rotor. Brake pads themselves are going to get plates and then clamps that hook the plates on. These plates go on, let me see here, they're going to go on something like this. Those will clip into the back of the two cylinders, so we'll get some grease on each side here. Just like so. Okay. Yeah, we need to make sure that those holes line up. There we go. Pins have to slide through those holes, so we need to make sure that lines up. Let's get some grease on each side. All right, we don't need a whole lot, just a little bit on the front and back here. I have plenty of the Schaefer's 238 Ultra Supreme. So that's what we're going to use. Okay. So slide that over a little bit, then we'll slide it down. Now it's over the holes. Let's do the same thing to this one. And again, we want to make sure these tabs are wrapped around the pad All right, there's that plate, and the holes are lined up so the pins can slide through. Let's get a little bit of grease on this side as well. All right, we have to get this clamp on the top here as well, and those holes have to line up. That keeps this plate nice and tight. Got to do the same thing here. And it goes like that. There's that side. Got to kind of squeeze it all together so the clamp goes on there. All right, there we have it. Holes are lined up. Let's get these to the side. Wipe our hands a little bit. Bring the caliper over. So this is the outside of the caliper. This is the upper side of the caliper, lower side. These are the pistons. Let's get the brake pads in here. These have to get locked into the cylinder. There's one. Spin it around. Tabs go into the cylinder. Here's two. Now we have to get springs up top here and then slide pins in the holes, get more springs, and everything gets held together and spread apart. I'll show you what we're doing here. One pin, and we're going to grease them up. Come in from the outside of the caliper, which is this is the outside. Should slide easily. The hole on this pin has to face upward. We're going to get the other one. Grease this up as well. Coming in from the outside, everything lines up nicely. The hole from this pin, we want facing upwards. Now we need to grab a spring. Wipe our hands again. This is the spring that holds the pins from sliding out. My gloves. These cheap gloves are, they are what they are. Okay. Now we just need to use the needle nose. Twist this around. Just enough so it gets in that hole, and there we are. So this pin, or this spring, holds these two pins from sliding back out. That's no big deal. Now we need one that keeps the pads spread apart where we're not in the brakes, so it's not riding the rotor. We're not riding the brakes. And that's this one here. We're going to have to pull the pin back out again for this. And it's also going to go on the lower part of the caliper. This is the lower part. So we just pull this back out, which is no big deal. It's going to go just like this. Squeeze things together. Get the pin back in. Position it. Let's get this spring back in again. All right, that one's back in. Now we have to lock the end of the spring into the hole on the brake pad on each side. And the needle nose will help us do this. We just have to get a little bit of tension on it. There's one side. And there's the other side. So that's what that looks like. Now we can get this unit over and bolted back onto the truck again, hook up the hose, and bleed the system. All right, let's get this back onto the hub assembly. We need to get this pin, or we need to get this bolt for the hose out of here. Don't want to lose these washers. This is the upper part of the caliper bleeder. Here's up on the top part. Plenty of room to slide this back on again. Now we just need to get the hose out of the way and line up the bolt holes for the caliper. Grab one bolt, see if I can get it started just by sliding it around here. And I'll be darned, we got one started. Let's get another one. Start the bottom one. All right, we have two. Run them in as far as we can by hand. And then we grab the ratchet one more time. Torque them down. Now, we need to get the hose back on there, which shouldn't be a big deal. It's right here. Should be able to get it started by hand. My hands are getting slippery with the fluid sloshing around everywhere. There we go. Just run this in. Tighten it down. Okay. Wipe things down a little bit. And then it's time to bleed the system. We've had all of the fluid that was in the old calipers, plus what was dripping down here for the last 15-20 minutes or so. We'll check the reservoir. We have plenty of .3 to get in there. So from here, we took a pretty big hit when it comes to brake fluid, which is good. We practically flushed it, and it will be flushed by the time we have it bled anyways. So I'll have Junior hop in here, pump the brakes, we'll bleed both sides, and we are close to inspection. I just need to wait for the brake light to come, which is broken here. It's functional, but it's broken, so I'm going to get that replaced, put on there, that we could send it over for inspection, and we're getting there. We're making progress with this thing. I can't wait to dig into the paint. That is coming up soon. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate. If the videos help you in any way, if they're entertaining, hit the subscribe button, like or dislike, share the video, and help this channel grow. Brian from Apex Auction Car Reconditioning. Catch you in the next video.